Hello, my name is Jen Riley. I'm an educational consultant with Kentucky Department of Education. Thank you for attending the Early Childhood Regional Training Center's webcast series. Today's topic is tools to assist families in supporting positive social emotional development with the Berea RTC. We're going to begin now with Alicia Wedden from the Anderson RTC.
Welcome. Today's presentation is going to focus on helping you as the teacher work with parents on some tools that they can use to support positive social emotional development while at home with their child. This session, again, is presented by the Anderson RTC and the Berea RTC. I'm Alicia Wedding, the director of the Anderson RTC, and Sonia Michael is with me from the Berea RTC. So why is it so important for children to develop a good social emotional skill framework? For one, research does show us that babies are born with that ability to connect with people. And then as their brain matures, the way that the child communicates their emotions and the responses that an adult has to those emotions will establish those pathways in the child's brain that leads to all other physical, cognitive, and emotional learning throughout their life. Research also shows us that early social emotional skills are directly connected to how all of us are able to relate socially, emotionally, academically, and even professionally to other people later on in our lives. So as you're working with parents, it's always good to talk to them about how good social emotional skills will help their child be able to work on a challenging task and keep trying without giving up and saying, oh, I can't do that, which we hear quite often. It's also going to give them the ability to ask for help when they need help or if they need help, as well as gain the ability to be thoughtful in their actions. So how do we help families support their child's social emotional development? First of all, families are the first and most important influence on a child's social emotional development. So parents fulfill this responsibility because they are responsive to their child's needs and they provide a safe place where their child can learn and grow. So when we work with families, we always want to make sure that we talk to them about how important it is to expand their child's circle of influence. So you want to include extended family, friends, peers, even community members, and more. And doing this is going to allow the child to find more ways to support their own emotional growth. But some ways that you as the teacher can work with families could include things such as developing a partnership with a family in order to foster that communication. Lots of teachers do that through weekly newsletters or daily notes home. You can share strategies with parents for them to use at home with their child that are related to social emotional development. And you can also plan parent-teacher conferences or use ARC meetings to talk about social emotional learning, especially if a child qualifies for services in the area of social emotional development. Parents need to be a partner with you in developing those goals related to social development so that they can too work on those when the child is at home with them. You can also work with different community agencies that support families as well. So let's talk a little bit about how we help families understand social emotional development. So what exactly is social emotional development? It's basically the process of teaching a child to be able to identify their emotions and to express them in an appropriate manner. It's also helping them be able to develop the ability to self-regulate and self-calm their own emotions. So by learning to do these things, children are going to be able to develop skills that allow them to build those positive relationships, as well as develop some empathy toward other people. So how can we help children learn to identify emotions? First of all, when working with a parent on what to do to help their child identify emotions, the first step would be to talk to the parent about how they can help their child give the feeling a name. So by naming the feeling and having a conversation with the child about those feelings, they are helping them establish a vocabulary for talking about their feelings. For example, you could say something like, I see your brother took your toy and you are really mad. By doing this, they are giving that child's feeling a label. So remember, when you're working with parents, that there are a lot of other words that label emotions other than the typical happy, sad, mad. So don't leave out some of those bigger emotion words, such as frustrated or confused or embarrassed. Children can learn to talk about those big emotion words as well, and make sure that you relate it to how they're feeling. So the next way that you want to help parents help their child identify their emotions is by giving them an opportunity to identify their feelings and the feelings of other people. So you do that first by talking about the feeling that the child has, using a statement such as, "You look really happy. Your eyes are big and you are smiling." Or, "I can see that you are frustrated trying to put those blocks together. What can you do? I think you could take a deep breath and ask for help. What do you want to do?" And then state how others are feeling using statements such as, "Remember yesterday when Daddy got mad because the car wouldn't start? What did he do? He took a deep breath, called a tow truck down and waited for the truck to arrive." Or, "Johnny hit his head on the sidewalk. How do you think Johnny is feeling?" And then finally, work on stating how you are feeling by using comments such as, "I'm really angry that I can't get the oven to work. I think I will take a break and see if I can think about some solutions to this problem." Or, "I'm really sad that I didn't get to go on my morning walk. What do you think I could do to fix my problem?" Examples such as these will help parents understand a little bit better on how to talk to their child about those emotions. Why is having a strong emotional vocabulary important? Well, first of all, teaching vocabulary is an integral part of any preschool curriculum, but we can't leave out our emotional vocabulary. Emotional vocabulary is basically associating those words with our emotions, and children need to learn how to recognize them, label them, and understand that feelings that they are having are okay, and those that other people have are okay as well. Children who develop a strong emotional vocabulary as they get older will be able to tolerate frustration much better than those that do not have a strong vocabulary. And they also tend to get into fewer fights as they get older and engage in less destructive behavior. These children are healthier, they're less impulsive, they're more focused, and they tend to have higher academic achievement than children who do not have that strong emotional vocabulary. It's also important to share with parents about using vocabulary words with their child to develop that emotional vocabulary with them early. So you may want to encourage them to start with the more common words, or the words that they're pretty sure that their child knows, such as the happy, sad, and mad, and practice those, and then add harder words as the child is able to understand those. When children have learned how to name their emotions, then they should be ready to learn ways to deal with those emotions in an appropriate way. So first of all, you want to talk to parents about how they can talk to their child about those emotions using words that they can understand. You can do this by using books or videos and talking about the characters and what emotions those characters are displaying. You're going to discuss both the positive and the not so positive ways that children express their feelings with the child, and then let them come up with ways that they can deal with their own emotions, using some real life examples of things they have experienced or that are actually occurring, to discuss ways they can handle their emotions are also really good. The key to remember here is to keep it simple. Try to always relate what you're talking about back to something that's happened in the child's life. And then when the child expresses his or her feelings inappropriately, take that time to teach them a new strategy, such as taking a deep breath or getting an adult to help or finding a quiet place to go calm down. So when parents see that the child has begun talking about their feelings, encourage them to praise that child for doing so. Don't just react to it. It's very important for the child to know exactly what he or she did correctly and that the parent is proud of them for doing so. Stress to parents that they should ensure that their child, that it's always okay to state how they feel to them and to other people, and work on how to express those feelings in an appropriate way. Many things happen throughout the day that allow the opportunity to discuss feelings and to practice ways to express them. So talk about feelings while children are playing or riding in the car or eating a meal. The more the child practices, the faster they'll be able to deal with their feelings the correct way on their own. And then finally, don't try to practice expressing feelings appropriately if the child is in a full meltdown or a tantrum. We see this a lot from both teachers and parents. At this point, they have to deal with the emotion. And then once the child is calm, then you can talk with him or her about what happened and discuss the best way to handle that emotion in the future. So why is teaching children about emotions and how to express them so important? One, for young children, big feelings can be very scary and very overwhelming. So making space for those feelings, as well as validating those to the child, allows them to develop that healthy acceptance of those feelings. When they learn not to fight against the feeling, then they decrease that stress and anxiety that they have in the feeling. The second step is to cope with those emotions, and being able to identify them first and foremost. So when parents and teachers familiarize the child with a wide vocabulary of emotional language, then they're better able to pinpoint what it is they are experiencing. And being able to identify that emotion is a vital building block to being aware of it and being able to control and express it appropriately. The third thing is that once a child develops that skill to identify the emotion, then they can begin to develop that self-awareness about what calms and soothes them. Now, this will be a process of trial and error. So you can come alongside the child, help them observe and identify what seems to lower those physiological stresses that they experience in that particular emotion. And then fourth, if the child falls into a pattern of suppressing those feelings, they're going to be unable to function to their full developmental capacity. Unresolved feelings tend to linger in the subconscious, where they end up compromising all of those internal and mental energies that the child needs in order to function in their everyday life. And fifth, it's easy to encourage a child's suppressions of feelings through statements such as, oh, stop crying, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich isn't that big of a deal. I mean, we have a well-meaning intent there to teach that child reasoning, but that's going to be lost on their developing brain because their brain at that point is being flooded with stress hormones. And the takeaway here is that a child's brain, and even our brains as adults, cannot learn while we're in a heightened state of emotion. So when we allow that feeling to come and go, then everybody wins. And then sixth, successfully working through those emotions is the cornerstone of good mental health. So if expressing ourselves becomes a routine for a child, then they're less likely to engage in negative coping patterns because those negative coping patterns can lead to anxiety, depression, and other mental health concerns. And seventh is just like adults, it's not uncommon for a child's unresolved feelings to manifest physically through bodily symptoms such as headaches and stomach aches, or that child that says, I don't feel good. They just have that overall feeling of being sick. We all have experienced that as adults, and children experience those same feelings when they are overwhelmed with emotion as well. And lastly, if we're being honest with ourselves, most of us are really still trying to figure out how to take care of ourselves emotionally due to having our own weak framework of emotional intelligence. So when we support children in acquiring the skills that they need to identify and express their feelings, then we're contributing not only to their long-term mental health, but we're also contributing to their all-around health. So starting early gives them a leg up on their long-term emotional well-being. So how can we do this at home? One thing is practice makes perfect. So the more the child practices, the better they will get at it. One thing you can do is play make a face. So start by telling the child that you're going to make a face and they need to guess how you're feeling based upon your facial expression. Once they guess the correct feeling, describe something that makes you feel that way. And start with those feelings that they know, such as happy, sad, or mad, and then move on to the harder ones, like angry or disappointed. And then once you do it, have the child make a feeling face and you guess. And then ask them to tell you something that makes them feel that way, and keep taking turns until they become disinterested. Another way you can practice this at home is to make an emotion book. Just take some paper, crayons, and markers. If you have a stapler, you can fold the paper and staple it together to make a book. If not, you can poke holes in it, use string or yarn or something like that to tie it and hold it together just to make it look like a little book. Just use whatever you have at home. And then have the children, you can have them draw the emotion pictures and then help them label each emotion. You could have them cut out pictures in a magazine that represents the various feelings, various emotions. You could also take pictures of them with their emotion faces. And you can include those all in one book, or you could make a book of different emotions, a happy book, a sad book, an excited book, and do the same thing. You can also practice using a game called Mirror, Mirror, What Do I See? So you can use a hand mirror or a mirror on the wall in your house or in the bathroom. And you would say, Mirror, Mirror, what do I see? And then make an face. And then follow that by saying something like, I see a sad mommy looking at me. Then give the child a turn. Help them say the phrase, mirror, mirror, what do I see? And then the next sentence, I see a happy Johnny looking at me. Children will tend to do the same emotion that you represented, but then as they become more comfortable venturing to other emotions, they will do that on their own when they feel more comfortable identifying them. So as teachers, you can share with parents these games that they can use. And another way to practice at home is by using a book. So books are a great way to help children understand their emotions and those of others. There are a lot of books that talk specifically about emotions, and others will show emotions in pictures. So as you read to the child, stop and talk to them about the pictures on the page. Ask things like, what do you think he is feeling? Or why is he feeling that way? Or you could say something like, look at her face. How can you tell that she is sad? Have you ever felt sad? What makes you feel sad? Don't pause too long on each page. Just one or two questions should be fine. Otherwise, some children may tend to lose interest if you spend too much time. Some good books that help children understand emotions are books such as The Way I Feel, The Color Monster Goes to School, Grumpy Monkey, The Pout Pout Fish, The Feelings Book, and there's tons more books about emotions. You can Google and do a search for children's books about emotions. And there's a huge variety to choose from. If you don't have one of the books at home, parents can also find books on YouTube that are read aloud to the child. So they could just type in the title or type in children's emotion books, and they can select from lots of different choices there. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Sonia Michael, who's going to talk to you about self-regulation and self-calming.
So several of the strategies that Alicia shared really are basic to self-regulation and self-calming. She talked a lot about emotional literacy and helping children understand and express emotions appropriately, and all of those are really important to self-regulation. When you talk to families about self-regulation, it's really important, as Alicia said, to help them understand that it's foundational to a child's success throughout school and life. Self-regulation really involves helping children cope with strong feelings. A lot of the strategies Alicia shared help with that. It also helps them learn to focus and shift their attention. So we know as we go through life, there are a lot of things that demand our attention, and children have to learn how to focus on the things that are most important. So self-regulation helps with that. And also it helps with controlling their behavior so that they can get along with others and have those skills to collaborate with other people and play well with other children and develop friendships. And self-calming is really a part of self-regulation, because children have to be able to learn to calm themselves and work through strong emotions and come out on the other side so that they can be regulated and continue to function appropriately. So all of those things are closely connected to that emotional literacy and being successful in life, really. So just some ways that you can share with families to help them really understand helping children develop that self-regulation. One thing is choices. So I know we all as educators talk a lot about providing appropriate choices for children, but helping families understand that too, that we can give children two appropriate choices, two things that both of them would be okay if the child chose it, but it gives the child some control in the situation. So for example, at bath time, they might tell the children they can use a cup to pour the water into use another cup to pour water into it, or use a cup to pour water on their body. So if the child is splashing the water out of the tub, they could give them two positive choices to use instead of splashing the water out of the tub. Or at playtime, if they're fighting with their siblings or someone over a toy, you can give them two positive choices of ask me for help when your sister takes your toy, or you can trade her for another toy. So giving families those ideas for providing two positive choices can help them avoid some meltdowns. Another way that another strategy you could give families is helping children learn to wait their turn. So that can be as simple as if they're talking to another adult, reminding the child, I'm talking to another adult now, you can ask me when I'm finished. Or playing fun games like stop and go games or dancing the freeze, because children, because when you stop, they have to follow the directions and do what the game says. Or play board games that require turn taking. So each person gets their own turn, so the child learns that turn taking and waiting. And then just incorporating turn taking into everyday activities like cooking. So if the family is making cookies, the child could take a turn stirring or take a turn putting cookies on the pan. Or picking books to read at night when it's bedtime, maybe the child could be the one to pick out a book. Or you could take turns. Tonight's my turn to pick a book, tomorrow night will be your turn. Another strategy to help families with is encouraging children to follow directions. So playing Simon Says and Follow the Leader are really good, fun games that require following directions. Following recipes is another way. So you read the recipe to the child and have them measure out the chocolate chips for the cookies or measure out the flour. Putting models together, such as airplanes or anything that requires following directions to assemble, or even if you're playing with blocks, maybe tell the child put the red block on top of the blue block, but giving them directions to follow while they're playing. Provide strategy to help them persist. So we know that persistence in life is really important. You have to be able to persist at things even when they're not that easy. So really encouraging them to maybe working on puzzles. So maybe if they're used to a 15 or 20 piece puzzle, getting a harder puzzle and really encouraging them to persist at it and continue trying until they've completed the puzzle. Breaking down a harder task, such as tying their shoe. So maybe if you're teaching the child to tie their shoe, breaking it down into the little steps. First you have to make a circle with the shoestring, and helping them break that down so that it's not so stressful and frustrating for them, and they're able to persist and complete it successfully. Planting seeds and watching them every day helps them persist, because it takes time for the seeds to start budding and growing through the dirt. So that really teaches them to recognize how time has to pass, and we have to, sort of persist and wait for things to happen. And then giving them responsibilities, small responsibilities for young children, such as maybe watering the plants in the house. Older children can learn to walk the family pet, but giving them those household chores also helps with that persistence at tasks. And then calming strategies, as I said, plays a really important role in self-regulation and is a component of self-regulation. So when you talk to families about calming strategies, help them understand that everyone gets upset. Children are going to get upset. It's a natural part of growing and learning. We even get upset, as Alicia said. So their job is not to keep the child from being upset. I know I always like to tell the story that sometimes families want to have Cheetos for dinner every night to keep children from being upset, but they're going to be upset. So help them understand that their job is not to keep the child from being upset, but teach them how to deal with being upset. And then help them understand also that children can't learn new strategies when they're upset. Alicia talked about this also, but if a child is in the middle of a meltdown, they're not going to be able to listen to you explaining calming strategies. You have to sort of wait for them to calm down and then help them start to self-calm when they can listen. And And finally, it's really important that the adult remains calm, because if we lose our self-awareness and we lose our control, it's going to make things more difficult for the child. So some strategies you can provide to families in terms of helping them use those self-calming strategies is understand the difference between being calm and being upset. So when they're calm, they can introduce something like the relaxation thermometer that comes from the challengingbehavior.org website. So they can talk about, this is what you look like when you're relaxed. This is how we feel when we're relaxed. And when we're upset, we're turning red, and we're having this angry face, and teaching them the strategy to calm down. So taking a deep breath and counting to calm down. But it's really important that they first of all know what it feels like to be calm and what it feels like to be upset, so they can learn to keep themselves calm. Another thing is just sharing breathing strategies. We have some resources to share with you at the end of the PowerPoint, but Conscious Discipline has a lot of really good breathing strategies. The Center on Pyramid Model Innovations, or challengingbehavior.org, has a lot of really good breathing strategies. So this graphic came from challengingbehaviors.org, but helping children practice breathing strategies to self-calm is a really helpful thing for families. And then also identifying physical activities that promote self-calming. So things that it needs to be something that the child is competent at and enjoys doing. But yoga or stretching activities, there are a lot of children's yoga videos on YouTube that families can use. If the child is competent at counting or reciting the ABCs or singing the ABC song, that might be something that the child could use as a self-calming strategy. Something that requires concentration, like Duplo blocks or Lego blocks, as long as they enjoy that activity, is a good calming strategy. They could help the child hug a pillow or a stuffed animal, or we know how important also that nature is in helping people stay calm and self-regulated. So maybe being able to take a walk outside is another good strategy to share with families. Another thing that you can encourage families to do, or maybe assist them with, is making a calming strategies choice board. So once they've identified strategies that the child enjoys and is competent at, and they know will help them in the self-calming routine, help them make a choice board and let the child choose first of all, practice those choices when the child is calm. Always we need to teach the strategies when the child is calm. And then have this choice board available when the child gets upset, so they can choose that strategy that they want to use, and they've practiced it when they're calm, so now they'll be able to implement it when they're upset and calm themselves back down. So these are the resources that we wanted to share with you. These will be posted along with this webcast on the KDE website. So the first one is challengingbehavior.org. You can just type in challengingbehavior.org, or you can use this link, but this particular link takes you to a site on that website that has strategies specifically for families to use in supporting social emotional development with their children. The Center for Resilient Children.org has a lot of strategies, again, that families can use to build resilience with their children. Conscious Discipline has some free resources that you can make available to families, such as breathing techniques, stories and activities that families can use with their children. This YouTube link is an informational video that just gives families, it's really a talking head video, but it gives families information about the importance of social emotional learning if you feel like they need that support. The Second Step website also has some free resources for families and educators. And of course, remember, if you use the Second Step curriculum, that it also has those good family handouts that you can use to support families at home also. SesameStreet.org has a caring section that really encourages children to learn empathy skills, which is an important part of developing, getting along with others. And then NACCE has a section for a family section that has really good, useful handouts that you can give to families. And this link takes you specifically to the one about challenging behavior and development. The CEFL website, the Center for Social Emotional Foundations for Early Learning, also has a section devoted specifically to resources for families that you can access and share with families. And finally, 0 to 3. This link will take you to the parenting section of 0 to 3, and you can search there for whatever you're looking for. But they have a really good section on social emotional development. And if we can do anything to help you, be sure to contact your regional training center. We always are happy to do whatever we can.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Sonia. That concludes today's Early Childhood Regional Training Center webcast. You can look for the link to today's session on the KDE website under the Exceptional Children tab. Thank you again for attending.